Hey, this is Alex with the Game Changers. Today we are making an Xbox Series X controller with remappable buttons, and it all starts with a teardown. So you have to take off the side rails and then the sticker, and then there's 5 screws. After this, you can remove the faceplate and the back of the controller. We then have to take off the shoulder buttons, which is just a couple clips, and then you get your screwdriver or tweezers in there, remove that, remove the joysticks, and now we go into a little more detailed and tedious work. You want to be really careful when you're pulling up these ribbon cables and these wires. They are very fragile, so we are working getting all the screws out. There's going to be a T8 and a T6 set of screws in this controller, so you will need both screwdrivers. And we are just going through, looking at the controller. You can see where all of the screws are, so just make your way around the controller, and then we are going to remove the back PCB. Once we have that removed, we are going to need our soldering iron. Be really careful not to touch any of the plastic on your controller, or it will very quickly melt, and we don't want that at all. So we are removing all of these wires on both sides just so we can work with this front PCB a little easier. Okay, and then the very next thing is to replace all of our face buttons. So I found these really nice looking red buttons that fit the faceplate perfectly. So I'm putting those in place of the previous buttons, and this only takes a quick minute. You do want to check your work every time because it is possible to get everything in there, start screwing in your motherboard or PCB, and then notice that one of your buttons is a bit off. So double check your work before you start screwing things back in. Now we start work with our first bit of electronics here. To secure it, I am going to screw in where you see that white outlined circle. Okay, just throw one of our silver screws back in. Okay. And we're going to put one more in, and then we're going to take out our soldering iron. The reason for this piece of electronics here is this is going to connect with all of the contact points for the face buttons and the triggers and the L3 and R3 buttons. So you could remap any of those with the 4 buttons on the back. You do want to be really careful. Again, these wires are fragile and your soldering iron is beyond hot, so be very gentle, take your time doing this. This type of solder is a mixture of lead, so I am wearing a mask because lead is very toxic to most living things. We are going to install our second piece of electronics. Okay, there's a few small holes that line up with contact points on the controller. At this point, just check your work, make sure those rumble wires are on the outside of the controller, and then continue with your solder on all of these little contact points. Then going to make sure that this ribbon cable is installed and the clamp is put down. I did this one really fast. It's pretty self-explanatory with these pieces for the back of the controller. Okay, there's definitely instructions in this kit, but putting this piece in here is very quick and painless. So just throw in a few screws on each side and we're done there. Then we are going to connect this ribbon cable. Make sure it's secure and put the clamp down. It is easy to forget certain things. Off camera, I soldered the rumble wires back to the motherboard just like we took them off. Now we can put our faceplate on and see what it looks like. Okay, we're just going to screw everything back in. There's 5 screws if you remember. And if you look really closely, I forgot a plastic part, but later in the video it is replaced. I just didn't film going back and fixing my mistake. We are nearly finished. We are going to put on our 4 remappable buttons onto these, and they go on a slight angle, so they fit perfectly when our hands are around the controller. Then we replace our side rails. Make sure you put in batteries and then test your controller. Here is the final result. Let us know in the comments what you think of this controller. Thank you all for making it to the end of the video, and check us out next time.